As we discussed in the last segment, there will be a significant increase in the cost of goods, transportation, and utilities for Canadians in the coming years. But is that increase justified by our contribution to the global issue? Now, as we chatted, by 2019, Canada contributed around 1.5% of global emissions. What are your guys' thoughts on that? I mean, we did kind of discuss that. I will touch on, though, groceries today costing you about $100. By 2030, with carbon tax, sales tax, and inflation factored at 2% will cost you $254.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's my biggest quarrel with the carbon tax is that it hurts low income and middle income families. That's the biggest thing because these people spend a greater percentage of their income on things related to energy. So when we make energy expensive, we make all of these things more expensive at the pump, at the grocery store.
But they are still, I don't think we have to look at this from a wealth perspective. We look at it solely from each individual person, despite how much money they have in their bank account, is contributing towards carbon emissions.
Yes.
So why do we look at it from hurting low income and high income people?
Because it's going to. That's what taxes do. It's why we don't have blanket taxes in our country. It's why that's why there's things like HST rebates, and that's why the carbon tax has a rebate, because the way the program was designed, it was known that this was going to affect different socioeconomic groups, right? But you mentioned the cost of groceries. Naturally, I think the cost of groceries is going to go up. So long as there's more population keeps growing, more people come on the planet, there's more of a demand on the goods and the services that we need.
So one of the interesting points that I want to discuss is production happening in other countries. Because here in Canada, we're sitting in Alberta on a lot of LNG gas that we could be giving to the world in a much cleaner way than countries who are using coal as their main source of energy, right? We also produce a lot of hydropower energy. Why are we not doing that here? And then we're just contracting out services to other countries and buying it and bringing it into Canada?
Well, for a variety of reasons, in a lot of situations, we're economically uncompetitive. Whether that's, if we take China, we have like zero regulations there as far as, climate control and carbon taxes, things like that. We also have cheaper labor, things like that. So it's hard for Canada to compete in that sense. It's hard for us to.
But if they wanted to really
scale.
contribute to climate change from a global scale, not just focusing on Canada, this would also benefit Canada if we use the LNG that we had in Alberta to support other countries.
How are they going to do that? How are they going to? Where's this money? Where are the resources going to come from to start building out something like that? Who's going to fund it?
The carbon tax. That's what its design was. So that the things we talk about, the technology we want to research, the jobs we want to create, the infrastructure we want to build, and the implementation of all that has a revenue stream. So somebody's not going to get in charge, grab the company credit card, in this case the government, and swipey, and then before you know it, we just borrowed another $300 billion. We got to pay 6% interest on, or whatever it is now.
Now, we did purchase over $14 billion worth of oil from other countries that don't actually produce clean energy. So if we cared about the global economy, just for the sake of the world, and saving climate change, why wouldn't we do it here in Canada when we're one of the cleanest producers of energy? We're just stopping it.
Poor government policy. That's happened over the last 40 years. You said something so intriguing to me when you said, why are we contracting stuff out? I assume you're talking about the bitumen that we mine, that we send out to the United States, that's refined and sold back to us. That's poor government policy. And that's happened over the last 4 decades.
But even the oil that we purchase from other countries, it's being produced in the worst way possible.
I agree with you. I'm not against developing natural resources, because it was quoted by a former prime minister that if we don't, somebody else is going to. This is all going to go back to a history lesson, and whether or not you believed in nationalizing our petroleum industry was a good idea or not. The reason why we don't have the money is because a lot of it is contracted out. It's a rich industry in Alberta. Nobody wants to see an industry die, but we also don't want to see the planet die. I think the panel can agree that it is an issue, and I think that the reason, I'm going to go back to why the carbon tax was created in the first place. It was a revenue stream so that we have money to implement all the stuff we talk about: technology, research, infrastructure.
What are your guys' thoughts?
I think that it's very theoretical at that point. I mean, if the government actually implements these things, then we'll see the benefits in 10, 20 years. But right now, all we're seeing is middle and low income Canadians getting, killed on pricing of things. And we're not going to, how long is it going to take for us to see this reinvestment, this, revitalization of these Canadian things? That's kind of the problem.
My concern is, from some of the research that I've done, around 61% on the liter of gas will be paying in 2030 towards the carbon tax. At what point does it stop? Because I do feel like that Canada is being squeezed to the core.
I think the federal government will change inevitably. The pendulum will swing.
They have to.
I don't want to. I'm not going to be a clairvoyant here, but I know it's going to change, and there will be another government that maybe thinks that's the numbers you just quoted is wrong.
We got to move on to the next segment. But when we come back, how is the money we collect being used? I know that's something that we all want to discuss.
Yeah.
I'ma rule the world, yeah.